Hey everyone, this is Sideways Sky, back again with another week review video. I was supposed to do a review this week, but that was very much procrastinated since it was a track by track review I originally did. I didn't like it, so I want the best out for you guys, and so I'm just going to do a more descriptive review of the album in general. So I'm going to scrap about half the review and redo it. Yeah, for now, but it's not like there hasn't been any material just because of the review that I covered. So I've listened to about 6 albums that have came out this week, and I'm going to discuss them all here and now with you. While I don't think any of them are really fantastic or really terrible in a sense, I do think they are really interesting, and you should probably look a little bit more into them. Most of these are going to be indie records, and a lot of the bands here are going to be bands that no one has heard of, especially the ones that I'm going to recommend anyways. Some of them have been heavily reviewed and well known. For one last thing before we get into our short little reviews, I just wanted to say that this will go in order from what I felt like was the worst album to what I felt like was the best album of the week. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the list. So our first album we're going to be going over for this video is the new Starset album, Vessels. This was an album I was expecting to be way better than it actually was. I definitely could not sit through this album again. Actually, I think I'd rather eat about 10 Bean Boozled jelly beans before I listen to this 11.5-hour album again. There are a few tracks on here that make it a little bit more than in a complete abomination, but I cannot see why this has high ratings at all. I haven't looked into a lot of their past material, so I don't know. I can't really tell whether how much hype was justified for this, because I've had no previous hype myself. It's a lot like Gone is Gone in the aspect of painfully boring releases that tried to do way too much with its production, but it ended up failing very, very miserably. And now for our next album, we have Oxime Bloddy. I'm pretty sure that's how you say that name. This is the album that Wayne Coyne decided to make for elevator music. Unfortunately, he wasn't like Brian Eno, and he didn't try to justify himself by at least making the titles like Music for Airports or something like that, because this album is just about as boring as any of that, except this didn't try to be ambient in any sense whatsoever. No, this is psychedelic. This is very trippy and insightful, but no, it's not. It's really bland. There are a couple tracks that actually do work in that sense, kind of going back to the Yoshimi days with the longer title tracks. But when I say longer title, I mean, you know, the you know what I'm talking about, the kind of the more experimental ones, especially with the first 2 tracks of this album. It does not leave a very good first impression, and definitely does not leave a very good last one at that. Yeah, I think I didn't even like The Terror all that much, but I can at least respect what it was trying to go for, and this one seems more directionless and, unfortunately, in the very wrong way. I would say nice try to them, but I think maybe the best thing is to hang it up at this point before they start making truly awful albums. So for the next album on our list, we have The Drip with the Haunting Fear of Inevitability. Inevitability, yeah. Okay, I did say that right. So, if you were looking for any good January grindcore, this would definitely be the album for you. I personally thought it could have been better with more variety. It does get kind of repetitive, especially in the middle section. There is some subtle changes in it, and it definitely makes for the better. This album would be completely bad if it wasn't for those changes, especially in some of the guitar tuning and the riffs. It's definitely not my favorite metal album of all time or anything like that, but you should give it a shot because these guys are fairly unknown, and if they did kind of vary their style a little bit, especially in the way an album later does on this list. Yeah, as I said, the repetitiveness keeps it from being great, but I really like the last 2 tracks on the album. It gives a really fierce punch that I wish the rest of the album had, but yeah, still a pretty good album. I'll check it out. Bonobo's Migration. Bonobo has came out with some really interesting trip-hop material, kind of in the Massive Attack line of kind of interesting experimental stuff like Animal Magic, his earliest album, and Black Sands, his most acclaimed album, I believe. And I know that kind of sounds like a random pair of albums to listen to, but those are the only albums I've listened to by him, and both of them have been enjoyable. I do like Black Sands a little more, but again, I highly recommend both of those albums to anyone who's looking into that. So let me make a little disclaimer before reviewing this particular album. The first time I listened to this, I was not impressed by it. I gave it a 5 out of 10, and I didn't like a majority of the tracks on it, but then I went through it a second time, and I was being way too nitpicky, and I actually found it a lot better the second go around. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Bonobo is actually moving away a little bit from the trip-hop genre and now being a little bit EDM influenced here. There's a lot of modern EDM. The way he takes this direction, especially on tracks like OUTLIER and Second Son, he does this really well, and it's really impressive to see him, again, make this movement. There are some tracks that kind of annoyed me with how the sounds didn't work, or some of them were a little bit repetitive. That stupid Bambro song was almost unlistenable. But overall, this album's a great step in the right direction for Bonobo. I don't know what his last album was, so I don't know whether he fell really hard or whether he picked himself back up, but from what I do know from Black Sands, I know he's taken a more contemporary direction, and thankfully he's succeeding at that. XX's ICU. It's an indie pop band that's been really interesting for me. I really like their debut album. It's quite great. In fact, it's really fantastic. I enjoyed basically about every song on there, maybe besides one little moment or two. I don't know. It's just fantastic. You should definitely go listen to it. In my opinion, it actually sets a benchmark or an idol for what indie pop should be like in this type of sound. And then they came out with this album. It's very critically acclaimed and popular, as the XX usually are. I'm just gonna say that it's definitely a little bit overrated, but I could see a lot of places to where people would enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed it, especially in the first half, where they change a sound of their song for about each song, but they don't change the same aspect of a song every single time. It's a different aspect, and that's what kind of makes them so popular, is that hardly anyone ever does that. Unfortunately, by the track Brave For You, it kind of goes downhill in a good bit too. There's a stretch of about 3 tracks that just get really boring and kind of dumb. I especially dislike Brave For You because, and I know it's a very critically acclaimed song for its message, but they used the same metaphor from the song Performance. They decided to take that metaphor with failing relationship and with a message to the girl singer's parent. I thought that was kind of dumb. But, yeah, other than that, I definitely would try to check this out. It's quite good, and especially the first 6 songs are really quite enjoyable. So the final album in our weekly review will be Black Anvil As Was. It is probably my favorite album out of the 6 we have gone over. This is a really good black metal album, probably one of the better black metal albums I've heard in a while. It's definitely got a certain rawness to it. There's a lot of Bathory influence. It's cleanly produced, but it's produced to sound raw, and a lot of albums that kind of work with that are definitely pretty great. There is a little bit of a post-metal touch to this, actually, and it kind of gives off for a really great atmosphere, especially with the guitars. I like the vocalist in this. His voice definitely complements the music a lot. Yeah, just basically every instrument really contributes a great part in this album. Now, there are a couple issues that did hold the album back from being completely amazing. One of those things, they dragged out some sections too long. Songs like Nothing and Two Keys had sections that ran about 3 minutes or so that kind of did the same thing over and over again, and it does get pretty repetitive within the songs. Another thing I didn't care for was the ridiculousness of it, especially in the last song, Ultra. The clean singing and some of the chanting gets really ridiculous to a point to where you can't take it seriously. It still doesn't like make the album bad or anything. This album's still great. Just could have been better, but yeah, still it's my favorite out of these 6. It's not my favorite of the week, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. So yeah, thanks for watching this little weekly review. This upcoming week, I'm gonna try to listen to some albums such as Foxygen's new album, Dot Hacker's new album, Frank Turner's new album, Wiley's new album, Anal Trump's new album, and let's I don't know if I can go into that too much, but yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.